Hello and welcome back. We are once again continuing on with our Cadian Shock Troopers here. Last time I did this kind of plasma gun, I wanted to make it kind of look like he had just fired it, like the coils are discharged. The only thing I changed in between episodes here is I added a little bit of black right behind where we did our kind of different effects there with our multiple different layers of brightly colored paints. I think it gives a little bit better of a transition. The silver just kind of stuck out a little bit too much, and it looks like it's kind of burned this way. So moving forward, we're going to kind of focus on faces today. We're going to cover all of them with this nice layer of flayed one flesh. We want to make sure we have a really good base because basically all that we're going to do for all of the features, we're not going to do the eyes. It's a lot of work, and honestly with models this small, it's kind of a net negative in terms of payoff. So we're going to let a wash kind of do all the work for us, but the best way to really get good results with that is to make sure that our base coat is really strong, really solidly applied. So we're going to go in here and we can get a little bit messy with this. I don't want it really going on the helmet, but there is kind of like a leather strap underneath that we haven't really painted yet, and I think that kind of holds true for all of these guys. So we can get pretty messy when it comes to the chin area, but we do want to kind of avoid the helmet if we can avoid it, because then we're gonna have to go back over it with our green, and it's just gonna be a war of attrition. um, that last model there has some goggles. We might work on that a little bit today. There's kind of a reflective effect I want to do with that. Might be a little bit of work. I'm not sure if we even have the right paints for it, but we'll definitely get around to that in the future. But for now, we do want to make sure that all five of our guys here have a nice solid base to put this next layer on. We are going to be using Reichland Flesh Shade. There's pretty limitless options. I have like 5 different washes that I use kind of sparingly for different kind of flesh tones. Some of them are lighter, some of them are darker. I know Cadian flesh tone or flesh is like the considered quote unquote like best option, or you know the recommended like GW tutorial. If you follow like their paint app, which they used to have the when you went on the website, they used to have the models and kind of what paints you needed right on the web page, like when you were looking at buying the unit, and they kind of changed that, which sucks. uh, it really, I hate using the app. I think it's kind of annoying. It crashes a lot. I don't think it's very reliable. And the web pages used to work, but they changed that. So, but I think that is the like official recommended color or for their washes is the Cadian flesh tone or whatever it's called. I think it's too dark. Personally, I don't know. It's not. If you're going for like a darker themed army, I guess, sure. But I think it's a little bit too much for what I want, at least. So we're gonna go something a little bit brighter. And this guy might need a second coat here. We'll come back to him. Um, yeah, definitely. I just want to let that first layer dry because otherwise we're gonna get some weird lumpiness, and I don't want to really risk that on kind of the focal point of our model here. The face is a very visible spot. It's something that people are going to look at kind of instantly when they pick up your model. So we do want to take a little bit of time on these and kind of do our best to make them look good. If you really want to do the eyes, my best recommendation to you is to just use your brush to do the kind of white. But when you're doing the pupils themselves, just use a toothpick. Otherwise, it'll kind of look weird. I feel like it's kind of hard to get a brush small enough for that. But toothpicks are great. Very, very small diameter. And it kind of lends itself as the perfect utensil. But I don't really want to mess with it. I think it's, again, too much work for too little payoff. And it's something that's very easy to mess up. And if you've ever seen people who do eyes and they mess them up slightly, it's very, very attention drawing. So we would just want to kind of avoid that altogether. And with that being said, I think this guy might need even a third coat. You can still see some of the gray underneath him, unfortunately. That's fine. We'll let him dry a little bit. Come back to this guy. And as these two are kind of drying, once we apply another layer to this, we will move on with our other three models, and we'll get them kind of finished up here. If we have time, I also want to kind of focus on doing some of the boots on these guys today, or finishing them up at least, because I think next episode I want to do some basing. Again, I kind of get a little bit bored when it comes to just doing the same, color schemes on the armor and everything, so I don't want to spend every episode just doing exactly the same thing. I want to keep things kind of freshen a little bit, hence why I'm doing the faces now. I did the plasma guns last time. Moving on to our wash, if I can show it off for you guys. Reichland Flesh Shade, as I mentioned before. Now, you don't need to thin it down, but one thing I will say is to kind of control how much you have on your brush. Otherwise, it'll very easily kind of overwhelm your model. And we just want to get a little amount on there. It will very naturally fill in all of the kind of recesses and draw attention to the highlights as well. And we might even come back over it another time, specifically focusing on the eyes, just to darken it just a little bit more, to give that kind of natural effect like we have eyes. And going right back in with our next one. Luckily, this guy has goggles, so we don't have to worry about it too much. But we do want to do a quick layer. Not too much, otherwise your guy's going to start looking kind of weird. I speak from experience. If you use too much of the flesh tone, your guys start to look kind of discolored and orange. I don't know if you've ever played Oblivion. I feel like most of you have. But most people at this point have. It's a great game. Highly suggested if you haven't. But using too much flesh tone makes your character look like you turned up the exposure settings in the Oblivion character creator. And your guy starts to just look like some deformed demon. It's rough. So avoid that if you can. And we might even need a second pass with this guy. That flesh tone didn't really do much. And if it's kind of pulling up in areas you don't want it to, it's a camera focus maybe. You can just kind of swipe it away a little bit. It's not going to hurt your guy too much. Just kind of keep in mind that if you still have a lot on your brush, it's going to just make it worse. So only put a little amount on your brush at a time. And going back to our two models that we wanted to do another layer on, we will get a little bit more on our palette. Again, we're doing some pretty nice and thin layers, so sometimes the build-up is a little bit of effort. Otherwise, your models are going to start looking like wax figures if you have too much paint going on them at once. And once he dries, he'll be ready to go. And our last one here, we're going to do the exact same thing, just a little bit more on his base layer. Again, be careful not to get the helmet too much. Kind of want to avoid having to repaint all of that. And let me just get a little bit more on this side of the face. My hands are extra shaky today. I do apologize about that. I don't know what it is. I'll have some episodes where I'm perfectly fine, and then some episodes where I'm just shaking like crazy. Again, I don't have my paint handle with me, unfortunately. It does kind of make things a little bit easier sometimes, but when you're doing batch painting, it does kind of get annoying switching out your models every 5 seconds, every time you switch colors. And switching back to our flesh tone, because these guys dry very quickly, we're going to do the exact same thing, Just apply it kind of liberally, taking care to let it just pull in the recesses as naturally as possible. And do the exact same thing with this last guy. Get a little bit more on our palette here. Again, you don't need to thin your washes at all, especially your shades. They kind of have the same consistency, but you do want to just kind of keep in mind how much you have on your brush, because they can very quickly kind of overwhelm. And I kind of did it on this guy a little bit. It looks like he has kind of a beard, but honestly, I'm going to keep it. It's kind of a cool effect, so we'll leave it. And we'll check on our other guys here. I think we'll do just a little bit more, because it doesn't really have much of an effect from the first time we did it. But this is a very nice and easy, kind of quick way to do faces. It's how I've always done it. There's 100 different shades and washes that you can use. It's just kind of personal preference, but I find that Reichland Flesh Shade is the best one, for Cadians at least, or any of your Imperial Guard regiments. If you want your guys to look a little bit lighter skin or darker skin, there's obviously different choices, and the base layer as well is a big factor in that. So just something to kind of keep in mind, open mind of. And moving on, I think I said I was going to do the boots. If I could find where my brown went, that would be great. Here we are, Dryad Bark. I have like 50 paints on my desk now. This project has just turned into a paint catastrophe, basically, because we've done like 4 or 5 different paints alone just for that plasma gun. But it turned out with a pretty decent effect. I like it a lot, so it's nothing to complain about. But I do want to focus on the boots, because again, next time I want to do some basing. I don't know if it's going to work the way I want it to. Essentially, I have some like fake grass that I want to use, but I don't know if the texture paint that I want or that I'm going to use is going to be able to hold it in place, because I don't have any glue, like terrain glue. I don't know. It's just not something I kind of picked up. So we'll see. We will definitely see. We will roll the dice on that one. But if it doesn't work out, I'll just kind of do what we can with our texture paints, and then in the future I will come back and we'll do more with it. And just making sure we have plenty more on our palette here. I am using Dryad Bark. I don't know if I mentioned it. I didn't show it off because I'm a bad painter. I fail as my duties of showing off what paints I'm using sometimes. But I've done 6 episodes on Cadians now, and I think of that I've used brown in maybe 5 of them. So I'm hoping you know what colors I'm using by now. But with YouTube's algorithm, some people end up joining, halfway through a project, so it doesn't surprise me. I'll get certain series where part 3 will just have hundreds of views, and part 1 and 2 will have 50 combined. So I don't know. The algorithm's weird, but I do what I can to please it. Again, I was gone for a few days. If you guys have kind of missed a few uploads of mine, or rather, I missed a few uploads of mine, I should say, and that kind of killed my algorithm. So that's fun. It just stopped recommending all of my stuff, and it still hasn't started yet. So I don't know what the deal with that is. YouTube basically says no sick days, so that's fine. Doesn't really bother me too much. I think it's just interesting to kind of watch and kind of see how it affects things. It is kind of annoying though, but it's fine. I'm just going to keep on painting, and YouTube can keep doing its thing. I'll keep chugging along. Painting wise, I've said this a few times now in basically all of my videos, because I kind of run out of things to talk about. If you guys want to see things, specific models, specific paints, and it doesn't have to be 40K. It doesn't have to be GW at all, actually. If you guys have anything you want me to paint specifically, feel free to let me know. Shout it out, drop a comment. My email is linked in my YouTube page, like the main page thing. I don't know what you call it, creator page, I guess. And I'm always open to suggestions. If you see something that looks cool, if you think that I'd like it, or if you just want to see a tutorial on it, feel free to let me know. Send me an email, drop a comment, whatever. I'm always open to new stuff. I do kind of get tired of 40K every now and then, so I do kind of like to switch things up. I love Age of Sigmar. There's a couple of other kind of miniature games that I've been looking at. I know Cyberpunk just had a new expansion for their kind of miniature line. They have like the Edge Runners pack thing I was kind of looking at. Other than that, I don't really know. There's like a whole world of miniatures out there, and I just there's almost too much to really explore. I know like Game of Thrones has a whole miniature line now, which I really feel like that kind of went under the table for me, at least. I saw like a Reddit post, and some dude just had like 20 different boxes, and they were all like different units, and they were just for like one faction. And they look like really well done. Like the box art was crazy on them, which kind of checks out for Game of Thrones. Like it's a huge franchise, right? Even though season 8 was terrible, but yeah, I had no idea they had a miniatures line. So maybe that's something I'll check out in the future, depending on how expensive it is. GW already claims a very large amount of my wallet. My GDP per year, so we'll see. We'll definitely see, but I definitely want to check out new stuff, and if you guys are hoping to see certain things, please recommend it to me. Same thing goes with like paints, techniques, whatever. I do want to try like speed paints, kind of like slap chopping in the future. That's something that looks decent to me, and I'd love to give it a try. If you have like certain brands of paint you want me to try out, go for it. Let me know. Generally, just anything like that is really kind of up my alley. And as we move on, I think we've. No, I'm lying. I was gonna say I think we did all of the boots, but this guy has not been touched yet. Now again, these boots are very easy. These little strips in the middle are kind of brown, and then we just do kind of the heel and toe in black. Of course, our Abaddon black, our beloved. Such a useful paint. I actually need to buy another pot of it. I'm running out of Abaddon black and lead belcher as well. I just use it so much. Literally every project we've done, I think with those two always pop up. We're also going to be doing some Balthazar gold at some point. Or actually, no, we're the other one. Oh my god, I can't think of the color. The brass one that we use a lot. We're going to be doing that at some point. There's little like eagles and emblems that I want to do just to bring out detail. So that's going to be a future part. These Cadians are taking forever and a day to finish up. That's just kind of the nature of the beast, doing a full squad. But it's fun. I do love Cadians. They're a lot of fun to paint. They are slow, but I think that kind of just heightens my enjoyment. It really, I could speed through these guys pretty quick if I wanted to, but I really like slowing down and just making sure that they look good. It really kind of makes you feel much more connected to your little squad here. And when you end up fielding a whole army full of these guys, it's really, really nice to kind of see all that work pay off. I have like a full shelf full of Cadians at this point, and every time I add to them, just a little bit of pride, it's a great feeling. And you don't really get that effect if you just kind of speed through. It's much easier, much less of a headache, but that pride isn't there. So I definitely like to take my time, and it gives me time to kind of talk about things. Um, there's a ton of like game releases coming out, and I like to talk about those. Basically, things like that. I don't really see movies as much anymore, but whenever I do, we'll talk about that as well. There's some animes I've been watching recently. I've been kind of trying to catch up on Chainsaw Man. I'm almost done with the first season. I've got to say, it goes hard. It's probably turning into one of my favorite animes so far. So there is that. And generally, it's just a good kind of format for commentary, I guess, is what this squad painting is. So I like it a lot. And as we kind of wrap up and get to the end of our episode here, again, I like to keep these things at around 20 minutes ish. I just wanted to finish kind of these backpacks real quick. I do want to shout out, I have a Patreon. If you guys enjoy these videos and you want to see more often, that's a great way to kind of make sure that happens. Otherwise, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. All of that really helps me out. Not only with kind of gauging how I'm doing, but just it's kind of like a morale boost. Seeing that people are watching and interacting it's like a very, very powerful drug. It's great. The endorphins I get from it are insane. So please, if you are at all inclined, and it doesn't have to be feedback at all. If you just have questions, or if you even just want to talk about Warhammer, like, please, man, do it in the comments. At some point, we can even set up like a Discord or something, once the channel kind of gets big enough. So that's definitely something that I'd be into in the future. But with that being said, I think we are kind of finished for now. We are steadily, slowly moving along. I think next time we're going to do the base for all of these guys. We'll kind of focus on that. So that should give us something to kind of break up the monotony here. Again, very tedious doing 5 of the more or less exact same guys. As always, thank you guys very much for watching. I appreciate it very, very much. And all I can say is, hopefully, I will see you next time.